Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 188. I trust you and yours are all safe and sound. Some of you have been getting out as parts of the country start to open up. I've got some really good emails this past week with questions from back out shooting, so it does me my heart really good to see the people out there taking pictures from more than just their backyard or their patio, their deck, their balcony. I want to thank you folks for tuning in and for keep putting out the word about the Moose Podcast. I guess binge watching is fading and binge listening is now in. I got some really good emails from some old podcasts this week. So I really appreciate you guys listening and keep pushing me up in the ratings. Also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera. That's bedfords.com. for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. The brick and mortar stores are back and open. They've been pretty darn busy, which is really great to see and to hear about. And the website's busy as well. So remember when you place your order, thank them for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. And also make sure you take advantage of that special discount, MOOSE. Yep, that's Moose. You know, it's going to save you some money. You're not going to probably pay sales tax, depending on which state you're in. And, of course, anything over $99 is free shipping. So it's bedfords.com. Thank them for sponsoring the podcast and all they do for us photographers, especially during these current times. Hey, I want to get right into this week's podcast. Your gear questions answered, hopefully. I had a bunch of questions come in last week. I think I kind of brought it on myself with some of my blog posts. And I thought I'd just get right into them and see if I can't answer them for everybody. Give you some food for thought. Perhaps they will help you with your gear acquisitions. John asked, do I own or have I seen the new Platypod head? John, I've not seen it, and I don't have one. Brings up the follow-up question, am I going to get one? At this point in time, I have no plans to. I'm like a lot of photographers. I've got so many tripods, so many heads, which it was painfully brought to my attention as I moved last month, and I'm seeing all these tripods come out from every nook and corner of the garage and closets, and oh lordy, way too many. I've got ones that I love right now. They're small, they're light, they work, they're paid for. So at this point, I'm not dying to add to the collection. Cheryl asks, why ProGrade memory cards? In this case, CF Express for the Zs and the D6. She asks, why am I using ProGrade, not some other brand? Well, as you know, for a long time, I was with Lexar. When Lexar was no longer, they changed hands. Well, some of the old Lexar executives started ProGrade. And these guys, they started me out eons ago with Lexar. I still have my 1 megabyte, yeah, that's right, 1 megabyte CF cards. So I've been with them that long, and these guys have been really great. They've really, put out incredible quality product, great service, and they've done a lot to help myself and my photography. So it was only natural when they came out, ProGrade, and they got these beautiful cards. In fact, I even blogged about their new micro SD cards, which scream when it comes to uploading in the computer. It was a no-brainer to go with ProGrade. I got Larry, who asked, am I getting the new Z70-200 2.8 lens? That's a really great question. Now, originally, I was not entertaining adding that to the kit. For the main reason is the F4 model, which I have right now, it's bought and paid for, goes to F32, and the Z70-200 2.8 goes to F22. So since that lens was primary for aviation work, the F32 made a difference. Now, hopefully you're sitting down when you listen to this. I actually booked a wedding. Now, don't get too excited. I'm not getting into that genre. Dear friend of mine because kind of put behind an 8-ball, and I was more than happy to help them out. Really great people. So that 7200 2.8Z lens, if it's out in time for that wedding, I will for sure, at the very least, rent one. And knowing my own personal weaknesses, when I get a lens in my hand and it performs, God, too often, sorry, Mr. Accountant, too often they end up in the locker. But at this point in time, I don't expect to buy one. Which brings me to another question. This from a different John. He wanted to know why I didn't buy the 120 to 300. That's a really great question. Why didn't I buy it? Well, I kind of just hinted to the answer a second ago, but the main reason is I've shot a number of 300 2.8s over the years, from manual focus to autofocus. Always a very incredibly sharp lens, small, easy to handhold, does a great job. But I don't need 300 2.8. Now, I've talked to a couple of people who I really trust, shooters who have the 120 to 300, and they say it's a spectacular lens. It's just as gorgeous as the 180 to 400. So don't, for a second think it didn't cross my mind. And if you read the website, you go back a couple of years when the 180 to 400 was first introduced, I said how I wasn't going to buy it. I wasn't going to add to the kit. I didn't see a need. And then I got that lens. And there's the thing, I put the lens in my hand. I become a really weak person. I should be going to weekly meetings about this. You put that lens in my hand and I start shooting it, and I fall typically, heads over heels about lenses that are really incredibly sharp that fill a need. The 180 to 400, that 1.4 built in, it's, you can switch that 1.4 on and off. Critters can't see any motion. You get to keep your eye on that subject. It's just a killer lens. That's why I have it. The 120 300 2.8, it is a spectacular lens, but at this point, I don't have any projects that would, make that lens and the capital investment a smart one. That's a really great question. I keep asking myself, John, let me tell you. Now, here's probably the big question I got after a blog post this week is, why am I buying a D6? I mean, that's really a great question. Why am I buying a D6? Well, I know my particular type of shooting. I know what I'm looking for in a camera body. And probably the biggest part of the equation is I know what I need from my camera gear to take care of my clients. Now, the D6, there's no doubt that probably its main job, the main reason why it's going in the locker is for aviation photography, that air-to-air work, that physical weight, size, autofocus, and now 14 frames per second, that is just going to be an amazing machine for that genre. And the second thing I'm going to use it for so much is for critters, for wildlife. When it comes to that 180 to 400 lens, for me personally, and of course this has to do with the way my bone structure, my face is, my practicing of hand holding, when I put that D6 or D5, which is what's currently on the 180 or 400, it's such a well-balanced package. It's so easy to move it for hand holding and panning. I just absolutely love it. I cannot, the lightness of the Z, which is what it's all about, for me just doesn't work. So that plus a whole lot more is why I am going with the D6. Personally, I have no doubt about the quality of the file. So then it's going to come down to other features in that camera. What will they do to sit there and move my photography forward? 14 frames per second, that's a biggie. Advancements in the autofocus, that's a biggie. Built-in GPS, that's cool, I enjoy it. But the other thing is the fact that it's just a big, beefy body. And personally, I just like big, beefy bodies, okay? BBB, big, beefy bodies when it comes to cameras. It works best for me, and all my years of being a photographer. It's just what suits me. Now, another question came in from a few folks is they understand the D6 works for me, but they want to know why I'm buying it now, especially with COVID, so many things being closed, so many opportunities not there. Why now? Why not wait what other people think about the camera? And I get other, input from people shooting with cameras, and why buy it now? That's a very valid question. And being in business, you understand, I ask those questions all the time. I wish I could, but I just don't get out and buy things just because I want them. They've got to be a definite need, and it's got to be a justification for the business to have that. The D6, I can see it right off the bat. You got to realize that I'm always looking at the bright side. It's just the glass is always half full. I know that in a short period of time, I don't mean by days or whatever, but we'll be out shooting again. I know that I can sit there and go back and get in the air with aircraft. There's a lot of folks really, I'm getting booked to do a bunch of stuff coming up. So if I were to wait and buy the D6 later, when I need it, the problem is I won't know it. Every single camera body since the F2, when I first started into the Nikon SLR and DSLR bodies, they all have their own little nuances, their own little, what makes them tick. And I want to know all that way in advance before I'm actually with a client paying me money to be a professional showing up on the job ready to go. It's like, hiring an electrician and they show up and they don't have any, like wire strippers. Well, how can you work as an electrician with no wire strippers, right? And then if they show up with a newfangled pair that, precisely, cuts the shielding off the wire, and they've never tested it, and you've got a wire sticking out of the wall, and it goes, and all of a sudden it's now an inch shorter rather than just a piece of copper sticking out that inch, and he's got to pull it all through the wall. Well, then guess what, right? So that D6, man, I want to know it inside out. So when I go out for that first, paying job, I don't have to think about the camera body. I just know what it's going to do. I know how it's going to do it. So then I can concentrate on the subject. But I think that's a great question. Why buy it now? That's one of the best questions I had this week. So I thank you for that. Now, a couple people ask, because I mentioned it in the blog post, why am I going to buy an extra new 18C? I think it's ENEL 18C. Why am I buying a new battery for the D6 when it's going to have so much better power management compared to the D5? Well, that's because when I bought the D5s, I didn't buy any new batteries for the D5, whatever one it is. I used older ones from the D4 because they fit. So I didn't see any need to go and buy D5 batteries. Now, the D5 batteries work in the D6 just like the D4 worked in the D5. But see, my batteries are, what would that be? D4 batteries. They got to be, 6, 7 years old maybe, right? They're pretty long in the tooth. I mean, they are batteries. They get hit really hard no matter how often I recondition them. So personally, I didn't get them for the D5. I thought I'd get one for the D6. So I have two of the batteries, which are, and they really have upped the technology in the battery. So it just made sense that now is the time to actually get one. But I wanted to, these are really some great questions. And you got to understand that questions are such an important part of the photographic process, be it, questions about the gear, the settings, or how you're going to share it. How you ask those questions of yourself and how you answer them will affect your photography just as much as anything else in this game. So better questions, ask more often, means better photography, better results more often. So just keep that up. Ask all you can and look for those answers that work for your photography, and you will always come out ahead. I hope you have a great week. I hope you're out there shooting. And remember to make every click your story.